Hello everybody, it is Nicole from Ikiwi and welcome to another Mermaid Monday. So today we are going to be doing something a little bit different. I wanted to start this new series that's basically drawing mermaids inspired by different characters. I have yet to come up with a name for it, so if you have any ideas, go ahead and leave them down below, but right now I'm just going to call them Inspired Mermaids. So today we have a Cinderella inspired mermaid. Now before I get into it, I just want to explain to you guys what this series is going to be about. I use the word inspired because this mermaid is not supposed to be the character as a mermaid. It's supposed to be inspired by the ideas, themes, designs, or even the color schemes of the character, but not creating the character as a mermaid. So for example, if I change the color scheme of the entire design, you wouldn't know the difference. So I created this series to challenge myself to use designs of other characters and think outside of the box for designs, because for me personally, I have a very set way of thinking how mermaids are, and I know it's not true because mermaids come in many different shapes and forms. But because I have this set way of how a mermaid should look, all my designs seem very similar, and I want to push that by just using other characters as inspiration and taking something that's probably not a mermaid or not related to a mermaid at all and creating it into one to expand on different ideas and design elements that I never would have thought of before. So this will make me think about how I want to represent different designs in a mermaid form and pushing me into styles of mermaids that I've never done before. And that's basically the main goal for this series. Plus, I love animation and Disney and DreamWorks and all those character designs, so I thought it would be just fun to do. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and get started. So like I said in the beginning, this mermaid is inspired by Cinderella, and for the longest time I was thinking of doing Cinderella's iconic blue dress, but then I thought about it and I ended up doing the pink dress. I chose the pink dress because it has a lot more layers to the design. Plus, I feel like the pink dress doesn't get enough recognition because Cinderella has her iconic blue dress. So the most challenging part was to incorporate the design of the dress into the fins. And this is something that I always struggled with when designing mermaids because they always have a pretty plain tail, and I wanted to try something new. So for this mermaid, I decided to go for the ribbons and beads idea, and it's kind of interesting because in the movie, those are the things that Jack and Gus took from Anastasia and Drizella. But I noticed in the design that there were a lot of ribbons and then the beads kind of tied it all together, so I went with that for this mermaid. There were also 3 colors for the dress, which was a dark pink, a light pink, and white, which is what I decided to use for the main part of the mermaid, and then the turquoise beads I decided to incorporate throughout the rest of it. So ultimately, I ended up using the bead design throughout the entire mermaid instead of just in one spot. I made her top the ribbon, and then the bottom of her tail I decided to incorporate that ruffle that's at the end of her dress, which is where the bow comes together, but I decided to get rid of the bow because the more I played around with it, the more I didn't like how artificial it looked, especially if it's on a mermaid's tail. If it was supposed to be part of the tail, it just didn't look right. It just looked like a bow was attached to it, and I decided to go for the sash part that goes around the body instead. Kind of similar to her blue dress where she has those light blue poofs on the side of her hips. I incorporated that on the sash part of her body and then at the end of her tail before the ruffles to kind of make a gradation between the 2 colors. And then, like I said before, I added the beads everywhere to kind of tie it all together, because having that color spread across the design really helped to make it feel like one. And I'm not sure if this is just a personal preference for me, but I just like having a color scheme to be balanced throughout the drawing. Not saying that having just the turquoise necklace would be unbalancing, but for me personally, I just like to spread it throughout the entire design. And then lastly, I added the two fishes, which is supposed to represent Jack and Gus. So like you saw, before I started outlining, I decided to do a quick color swatch to figure out what colors I wanted, and originally I was going to make her hair a different color so that she would definitely not be Cinderella as a mermaid, but I thought it would be more challenging to have the character have the same color scheme but not look like Cinderella. So that way I can really push myself into making a character that's definitely not the Disney or animation character, but just something inspired by their color scheme or just their design elements. So I hope that came across. I think that if I changed the color scheme on it, you guys probably wouldn't know the difference between this mermaid that has a Cinderella inspired color scheme or a mermaid that I just randomly came up with. So I hope that came across, and if it did, that means that I completed this challenge for this one, but it's definitely gonna be interesting in future ones. So for the rest of this drawing, it kind of is pretty self-explanatory. I outline it, I color it, and I shade it, and the color did change from the original color swatch just because I was messing around with the colors and I wanted to make it look more like the dress, so I pulled up a reference of Cinderella's pink dress and used that as a baseline. So instead of having the tail white, I made the end of the tail white because that's where the bottom of her ruffles are, and then the main part of her tail is the dark pink, and the ribbons are light pink. And the last thing that I did was I added the background, a very simple one, but I decided to make it bubbles because there's one scene where Cinderella is looking at her reflection in a bubble, and I thought that it was pretty iconic and a fun way to incorporate it all together. So that about wraps up this Mermaid Monday. I hope you guys enjoyed it and are looking forward to more in this new series. It's just something fun and challenging that I decided to do, and I thought it would be fun to share. But if you guys think that it does look like Cinderella, then that's fine too, because it was inspired by her. But that just means I need to challenge myself more into creating a design that is inspired by something but doesn't look like the character as a mermaid. With that being said, if you guys want me to do any specific characters, leave them in the comments. They don't have to be princesses, they can be any character. So another one I was thinking of was Hiccup or Toothless from How to Train Your Dragon. So those are some of my ideas that I want to do in the future. Let me know what characters you guys want to see, because this is really fun for me and just something that I would like to do more. And if you guys want to see it, then let me know. So with that, I want to thank you guys so much for joining me today. Keep drawing, keep painting, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!